The scream hit the hallway like a shockwave. One sharp, terrified sound that didn't belong in a mansion built to muffle every human imperfection. The maid, Elena, froze mid-step, her cleaning cloth slipping from her hand as she looked toward the staircase. Someone had cried out, someone young. She ran before she could think, the soles of her shoes slapping the polished marble, breath cutting in and out of her throat. The scream came again, shorter this time, more like a startled gasp. And then she saw him, Daniel, the millionaire's son, crouched in a tight ball by the stair railing, hands over his ears. That alone didn't surprise her. The boy was deaf, born deaf. He shouldn't have heard anything at all. "Daniel," she whispered, crouching beside him. He lifted his head slowly. His brown eyes were wide and trembling, like he had seen something she couldn't. Water pooled at the corners of his eyes, but no sound escaped him. He blinked once, twice, then pointed behind her. Elena turned sharply, heart skidding sideways, expecting something monstrous or shadowy or impossible. There was nothing, only the vast corridor, the tall windows, the early evening light pouring in like liquid gold. The house was still. She looked back at him. He mouthed something. She didn't understand. Not yet. The sound of heavy footsteps came from the far side of the hall. Mr. Hawthorne, the millionaire, the man who kept his house sealed like a vault and behaved as though the world wanted to steal something precious from him. "What happened?" he snapped, voice slicing through the air. Elena stood, swallowed, and stepped aside so he could see his son. "I found him like this," she said. Daniel trembled harder when his father approached. Hawthorne lowered himself with surprising softness, hand brushing the boy's arm. "It's all right. You're safe." Then he looked up. "Elena, you were assigned to dust the West Wing. Why are you here?" "I heard him scream," she said. The man stiffened. A flicker of confusion crossed his eyes, so fast she would have missed it if she weren't looking straight at him. "Daniel can't scream," he said quietly, not angrily, not dismissively, more like stating a fact that grounded his entire world. "He just did," she whispered. The silence that followed carried more weight than yelling ever could. Hawthorne carried the boy in his arms up the stairs without another word. Elena stayed rooted to the floor, pulse thundering and palms sweaty. She had been here only 2 weeks, and already the mansion felt wrong. Too quiet, too controlled, too tense. And Daniel, he had always seemed scared, even when nothing was happening. Now she had seen why. Later that evening, while scrubbing the kitchen counters, she noticed something on her wrist, a smear of dry brown. She lifted her hand into the light. It was blood, but not hers, and not from anything she remembered touching. A cold prickle climbed her spine. She washed it off. The night crew came in. Cooks, dishwashers, the butler. People who barely spoke. People who avoided looking at her for more than a second. Elena finished her tasks quickly, needing air, needing space, needing something normal. She stepped out to the back terrace, inhaling the cold wind. Then a voice made her jump. "You heard him, didn't you?" She turned. Mrs. Keene, the head housekeeper, stood behind her, older, stern, always moving like she was late for something. "I did," Elena said. Mrs. Keene shook her head slowly. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why?" "It's the truth." "The truth isn't always welcome here." Elena frowned. "What's happening to that boy?" Mrs. Keene's gaze flickered to the highest window of the mansion, the one belonging to Daniel's room. "Pray you never find out," she murmured. Then she turned away and left her standing alone. Elena tried to sleep that night, but the mansion creaked and breathed like something alive. Every so often, she'd jolt awake, certain she heard soft tapping outside her door. But when she checked, there was nothing. Morning came like a blessing. But the unease didn't leave. She found Daniel sitting alone in the library after breakfast, staring at the window like he was waiting for something to crawl through it. She approached him slowly and sat across from him. "Are you feeling better?" He looked at her, really looked. His eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. Then he pointed at her ear, tapping the area behind it. She frowned. "My ear? What about it?" He shook his head, then pointed to his own ear, then behind it, Then he winced, like pressing their cause pain. "Do you want me to look?" she asked. He nodded. Elena leaned in close, gently brushing his hair aside. That's when she saw it. A tiny, dark shape stuck behind his ear. At first she thought it was dry dirt or maybe a birthmark. But as she squinted closer, she realized it was neither. It was something attached to him. Something foreign. Something not quite natural. It was no bigger than a coin, but its surface shimmered faintly, patterned with shapes she couldn't identify. It looked old, ancient, and it was fused to his skin. "Daniel, what is this?" He touched her wrist suddenly, gripping harder than she expected. Then he mouthed a single word. "Help." She felt her breath catch. "Does your father know about this?" He shook his head furiously. "But you've had it since birth, haven't you?" He nodded. Footsteps approached from behind. Elena jerked upright as Hawthorne entered the library, looking like he hadn't slept either. "Elena, with me," he said. Daniel reached for her hand desperately, but Hawthorne pulled him back. "You have chores. Now." She hesitated. Hawthorne's eyes narrowed. "Do your job." Reluctantly, she stood and left the library, her heart pounding. She didn't trust this man. She didn't trust this house. And she definitely didn't trust whatever had been pressed into Daniel's skin his entire life. Throughout the day, she replayed the moment over and over. The charm, the shimmer, the fear in Daniel's eyes, the scream he wasn't supposed to be able to make. Something was wrong in this house. Something deeply wrong. And for reasons she didn't understand yet, Daniel wanted her help. That night, she decided she would check on him again. Whether Mr. Hawthorne liked it or not, she waited until the house fell quiet, until the staff retired, until the lights dimmed across the hallways. Then she crept toward the staircase, careful not to let her shoes click against the floor. Her heart thrummed with every step. At the top of the stairs, she paused. Daniel's hallway felt heavier somehow, like the air thickened the closer she got. She reached his door and pressed her ear to it. Soft sounds. Movement. Whispers. She froze. Whispers? Daniel was deaf. Unless those whispers weren't from him. She gently turned the knob. The door wasn't locked. She stepped inside. Daniel sat on his bed, knees to his chest, shaking. The room was dim, but she could see the terror in his eyes. When he saw her, relief washed over him. Then he pointed slowly to the darkest corner of the room. Her pulse hammered as she followed his gaze. A shadow moved, and it wasn't his. Elena's breath halted in her throat. The shadow in the corner stretched upward, too tall, too thin, swaying like it was trying to remember how to stand. Daniel grabbed her sleeve, shaking his head violently, eyes begging her not to speak, not to move. Elena forced herself to focus. The room was dark enough that anything could trick the eyes, but this wasn't a trick. She knew it by instinct. Every animal sense in her body told her that something unnatural stood just a few feet away. She swallowed hard. "Is someone there?" she whispered. The shadow stilled. Daniel whimpered silently, clutching her hand. His small fingers dug into her skin like he thought she'd disappear if he let go. She didn't dare step forward. Instead, she reached for the lamp beside the bed and flicked it on. Light spilled across the room, bright and sudden. The corner was empty, but Daniel shook his head, pointing frantically toward the spot. He wasn't confused. He wasn't imagining things. He had seen something, and whatever it was, it had been watching. "Elena," he mouthed desperately. "Please help." She pulled him into her arms without thinking and held him tightly. His heart pounded against her, uneven and terrified. The door suddenly swung open. "Elena!" She gasped and turned. Mr. Hawthorne stood in the doorway, face twisted with fury. "What are you doing in here?" Daniel flinched so hard he nearly fell off the bed. Elena kept an arm around him. "There was something in his room," she said. "A person or something else." "There is nothing in this house except what I allow," Hawthorne hissed. "And you do not enter his room at night." He was terrified. "He always looks terrified," Hawthorne snapped. "He is sensitive. You are making it worse." Elena stood. "He needs help." "What he needs," Hawthorne said, stepping forward until he towered over her, "is for you to do the job you were hired for. Nothing more." His eyes flicked briefly to the side of Daniel's head, where the strange object was hidden beneath his hair. Something darkened behind his expression. Fear, maybe, or guilt. Elena caught it, and Hawthorne knew she did. "You will leave," he said coldly. "Now." Daniel reached for her. His fingers brushed her sleeve, but Hawthorne's hand slammed down, blocking him. The message was clear. Elena backed toward the door, keeping her gaze fixed on Daniel until she stepped into the hallway, and the door closed sharply behind her. She stood there for a long moment, feeling like the house itself was listening. Downstairs, she sank onto a stool in the kitchen, hands trembling. She told herself to breathe. She told herself to calm down. But nothing about this place allowed calm. She needed answers. She needed to know what that object behind Daniel's ear was. And she needed to understand why Hawthorne acted like losing her was a bigger disaster than losing any other maid. As she sat there, barely holding herself together, soft footsteps padded into the kitchen. It was Mrs. Keene. "Elena," the older woman said quietly. "You were in his room, weren't you?" "He was scared," Elena whispered. "He is always scared." Finally, Elena snapped. "Why? What is happening to him? What is that thing behind his ear?" Mrs. Keene stiffened, eyes clouding with something like dread. "You saw it." "Yes, and I want an explanation." Mrs. Keene shook her head. "Some things are better forgotten." "I'm not forgetting anything. That boy asked me for help." The older woman's voice softened, just barely. "Then you are already in danger." Elena stared. From Hawthorne, Mrs. Keene exhaled slowly. From everything, the fridge hummed. A utensil clicked in one of the sinks. For a moment, Elena felt like they weren't alone. Mrs. Keene leaned closer. "You should leave this house." "I'm not abandoning him," Elena said fiercely. Mrs. Keene's expression broke for the first time, sadness seeping through her hardened lines. "You think this is simple," she whispered. "You think it's a cruel father or a secret illness. You don't understand." "Then explain it." "I can't." "You won't." Mrs. Keene closed her eyes. "If you stay, you'll wish you hadn't." Elena didn't move. Mrs. Keene opened her mouth, hesitated, then finally said something. "His mother knew." Elena straightened. "Knew what?" "That the boy was born touched." "Touched by what?" Mrs. Keene swallowed. Something not meant for this world. Before Elena could respond, the lights flickered. Once. Twice. An icy gust blew through the room, even though every window was closed. Mrs. Keene paled. "It knows you saw it." "The shadow in the room?" Elena whispered. "That was just a fragment," Mrs. Keene said shakily. "If you keep digging, the rest will follow." Elena's heart squeezed painfully. "Did his mother—" "She's gone," Mrs. Keene cut in. "And whatever took her is watching him now." The lights flickered again. A glass slid off the counter on its own and shattered on the floor. Mrs. Keene grabbed Elena's wrist. "Go to your room. Lock the door. Do not open it for anything. What about Daniel?" "Pray he sleeps," Mrs. Keene said, backing away. "Pray it sleeps too." Elena didn't go to her room. She went down the servant hallway, past the laundry room, into the narrow supply closet where she had seen something strange 2 days ago. A key, small, silver, hanging from a hook no one used. She didn't know why she remembered it now. She grabbed it. If Hawthorne had secrets, they were kept behind the locked doors scattered across the house. He had at least 3 she had never seen opened, and Elena was done being afraid. She crept to the west wing, the part of the mansion no staff member ever entered unless instructed. Every step felt like walking into a deeper, darker truth. Halfway down the hall, she heard a sound, a tiny muffled cry, a child's cry. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't Daniel's voice. It was too small, too faint. She followed it to a door with a heavy brass lock. Her fingers trembled as she slid the key in. It turned. The door creaked open. Inside was a dim storage room full of boxes, old furniture, dust-covered crates. At first glance, nothing unusual. Then the crying came again, louder. It wasn't coming from the room. It was coming from inside one of the crates. Elena stepped forward, hard her throat, and slowly lifted the lid of the nearest box. Inside, a small recorder sat on top of a pile of old documents. It played a looping track of a frightened child crying. Her stomach twisted. This was staged. This was planned. This was... Footsteps echoed behind her. A voice spoke softly. "I told you to stay out of the West Wing." Elena whipped around. Mr. Hawthorne stood in the doorway, and he wasn't angry. He was terrified. "Put the key down," he said, "before it hears you again." Elena froze where she stood. Fingers still curled around the edge of the crate. Hawthorne's voice was thin and strained, stripped of all the arrogance he wore like a second skin. "It heard you," he whispered, his eyes darting around the room as if expecting something to peel itself out of the shadows. "When you went into his room earlier, it noticed." "What is it?" Elena demanded, stepping away from the crate. Hawthorne's jaw clenched. "You shouldn't have come here." "That's not an answer." "It doesn't matter anymore," he muttered. "It's awake now." Elena's frustration boiled into anger. "Your son begged for help. He was terrified. And you're telling me this thing, whatever it is, has been around him his whole life? Attached to him?" Hawthorne's expression flickered. "Attached isn't the right word." "Then what is—" He closed his eyes. "Bound." Elena's breath hitched. "Bound to him?" Hawthorne nodded shakily. "Since birth." She felt the floor tilt beneath her. "Why?" He stepped into the room, lowering his voice like the walls had ears. "Because Daniel wasn't supposed to survive the night he was born." He swallowed. He came into the world completely silent. No heartbeat. No breath. Doctors tried everything. Hours passed. They were ready to declare him stillborn. A shiver ran up Elena's arms. But his mother, Hawthorne continued, she refused to accept it. She was desperate. She wanted someone who promised a miracle. "A miracle with a price," Elena whispered. Hawthorne nodded. "I wasn't there. I didn't know what she'd done until it was far too late." "Whatever she did, it brought him back," Elena said slowly. "But it took his hearing." "It took more than that," Hawthorne said. "It took her." Elena felt her heart sink. "His mother died because of this?" "Not died." Hawthorne's eyes glazed with something hollow. "Taken." Before Elena could respond, a floorboard creaked behind them. Hawthorne's head jerked up. His breath quickened. "We need to go. Now." But Elena wasn't moving yet. "What is that object behind his ear?" Hawthorne shook his head violently. "Not here. Not while it's watching." He grabbed her wrist, dragging her toward the hallway. But Elena yanked her arm free. "Answer me," she said sharply. "Was that thing put there to help him or control him?" Hawthorne looked at her with a kind of exhausted sorrow. "It was put there to keep everything else in." Her stomach dropped. "Everything else?" Footsteps echoed again. Slow, measured, coming from somewhere too close. Hawthorne lunged for the light switch and flicked it off. The storage room fell into darkness. "Elena," he whispered, voice trembling, "do not make a sound." The footsteps continued, steady and deliberate, like something dragging its awareness across the walls. Elena's lungs burned with the effort to stay silent. She could feel Hawthorne trembling beside her. Then the footsteps stopped. A soft, breathy whisper slipped across the room from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Hear me?" Elena slapped a hand over her mouth. The voice was childlike, fragile, wrong, like someone imitating a child without fully understanding how voices were supposed to work. Hawthorne squeezed his eyes shut. The whisper came again, softer this time, near Elena's ear. "Help me." Her skin crawled. Every instinct screamed to run. The footsteps resumed, heading down the hall. Only when the sound faded completely did Hawthorne flip the light back on. His face was pale, sweat dampening his temples. "You just met the part of him that was never human," he whispered shakily. Elena covered her mouth with a trembling hand. "No," she said. "No, that wasn't him." It isn't him now, Hawthorne said, but it used to be, or rather, it used to belong to him, before it grew beyond him. Elena felt cold all over. You're saying this thing is alive? It is hungry, Hawthorne said, and it wants to be whole again. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. The charm behind Daniel's ear keeps it from merging with him. The moment it comes off, the thing will take him back. Back! Elena choked. Back where? To whatever place it came from, Hawthorne whispered, and it will drag his soul with it. Elena's legs nearly gave out. Everything suddenly made sense. Daniel's fear, the shadows, the way he could sense things he shouldn't, the whispering that didn't belong to any human throat. What happens when it gets strong enough? Elena asked. Hawthorne swallowed. It won't stop at him. Elena clutched the key in her hand, knuckles whitening. Then why did you hire me? What did you think I could do? Hawthorne's expression broke entirely. Because every maid before you ran, every nanny, every tutor, they saw the signs, felt the presence, and they left. Some didn't make it out of the house. Elena's throat tightened. Mrs. Keene said I should leave. And she's right, Hawthorne said. It's already attached itself to you. A cold wave shot down Elena's spine. What? It follows those who connect with Daniel. You comforted him. You held him. That was enough. Elena backed away. No, that can't be true. You chose to care for him, Hawthorne whispered. And the entity feeds off emotional bonds. His fear, your empathy. Anyone who loves him is vulnerable. Elena's pulse thrashed violently. So what do we do? She demanded. Hawthorne looked at her with defeated ache. We wait. For what? For it to make a mistake. A sharp scream echoed down the hall. Elena and Hawthorne spun toward the doorway. It was Daniel. Elena sprinted before Hawthorne could stop her. She tore down the hallway, heart slamming in her chest, nearly slipping on the polished floor as she rounded the corner toward Daniel's room. Daniel, she yelled. The door was half open. She pushed it fully, and her breath left her in a painful rush. Daniel was sitting in the middle of the floor, hands pressed over his ears, tears pouring down his face. He shook violently, like his body couldn't decide if it wanted to freeze or collapse. But that wasn't the part that made Elena's blood turn to ice. The charm behind his ear was glowing, a faint, pulsing burn of light, too bright for something physical, too alive for something inanimate. And in front of Daniel stood a figure. No shadow this time, no half-formed blur. This one had taken on the shape of a woman, tall, thin, wearing a dress that drifted like smoke. Her hair fell in long, dark strands that swayed despite the air being still. Daniel looked up at Elena. He didn't sign anything. He mouthed one word. Mom. Elena staggered back. Hawthorne caught up breathless. When he saw the figure, he choked on his own inhale. The woman raised her head. Her eyes were bottomless black. But her voice was perfect. Daniel, she whispered sweetly. Come to me? Daniel sobbed harder, shaking his head violently. The woman smiled. Don't cry, darling. I'm here. I've always been here. Hawthorne grabbed Elena's arm. That's not her, he said, voice cracking. It's mimicking her. It knows he misses her. The woman's head turned sharply toward Hawthorne. You let her die, she hissed. Hawthorne stumbled back, face twisting in agony. Stop using her voice. She smiled wider, teeth too many, too sharp. I don't need her voice, she said calmly. I only need him. She reached for Daniel. Elena lunged. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just knew she wasn't letting that thing touch Daniel. Her hand closed around the glowing charm, and everything inside the room exploded. Elena couldn't breathe. She couldn't see. All she felt was burning heat where her hand grabbed the charm. Pictures filled her head, memories that weren't hers. A hospital room, a woman crying over a dead baby, a stranger in the dark but promising to save him. A deal made, my life or his. The woman's voice rang in Elena's ears, loving and broken. Just let him live. Please, Then darkness. Pulling. Ripping. A soul torn away and dragged somewhere cold and hungry. But something went wrong. The thing had taken the mother, yes, but it wanted the child too. The charm was supposed to come off eventually. It was meant to be a rope, not a cage. For 10 years it waited, getting stronger from Daniel's fear, from how alone he was, from every scared moment that fed its hunger. Elena gasped as the vision let her go. She was on her knees in Daniel's room, hands still holding the charm. It felt hot and alive against her skin. The thing wearing Daniel's mother's face was frozen, its expression full of rage. "You don't belong here," it snarled. Elena's fingers squeezed the charm tighter. She could feel everything now. The spell, the deal, the trick the thing had been using. "Neither do you," Elena said. The thing's shape flickered, showing something twisted underneath the mother's face. "The boy is mine. She promised him to me." "She promised you her life," Elena said. "Not his. You were supposed to take her and let him live. But you got greedy." Hawthorne stared at her, his face white. "How do you—" "The charm," Elena cut in. "It's not just keeping the thing out. It's keeping her stuck between worlds. She's still fighting, still protecting him." Daniel looked up at Elena with desperate, crying eyes. The thing laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Smart girl. But it doesn't matter. The wall is getting weaker. Soon it will break. And when it does, you get nothing," Elena said. She didn't know how she knew what to do. Maybe the charm was showing her. Maybe Daniel's mother was reaching through from wherever she was. Elena stood up and pulled the charm off Daniel's ear. Hawthorne screamed, "No, Elena, don't." The thing rushed forward with a screech. But Elena didn't drop the charm. She pressed it against her own chest, right over her heart, and spoke words that came from somewhere deep inside. A life for a life, a soul for a soul. The deal was made with love. Let it end with love, too. The room filled with light again, but this time it felt different. Warm, golden, like morning sun breaking through clouds. The thing pulled back, its fake body melting away to show something old and wrong, a blob of shadow and hunger. It screamed, but another shape was appearing. The real woman, Daniel's mother, see-through and fading, but definitely her. She stood between the thing and her son. "You fed on him long enough," she said, and her voice was strong despite everything. The thing twisted. "You gave him to me. The deal was done the moment I died," she said quietly. "Everything after was stealing." She turned to Elena, tears on her ghost-like face. "Thank you for loving him." Elena felt the charm burning against her chest. Something big was changing in the room. "What's happening?" Hawthorne choked out. "The thing fed on the bond between mother and child," Elena said. "By offering myself, choosing to protect Daniel, I gave her enough power to finish this." Daniel's mother knelt in front of her son. She couldn't touch him, but she signed with see-through hands. "I'm so proud of you. So proud of how brave you are." Daniel cried, signing back fast. "Don't go. Please don't go. I have to," she signed, "but I'm taking it with me. You'll be free. You'll be safe." She turned to the twisting thing. "You wanted a soul? You can have mine. But this time, I'm not letting go." Before anyone could move, she jumped forward, not away from the thing, but into it, her shape wrapped around the darkness like chains of light. The thing screamed, fighting, but she held on tight. "This ends now," she said. The room shook, a crack opened in the air, and Elena saw something huge and cold, the space between worlds where the thing came from. Daniel's mother dragged the thing toward it, her light getting dimmer as she used everything she had. The thing fought hard, but she was done being weak. She'd fought for 10 years from beyond death to save her child. She was stronger. With one last scream, both shapes disappeared into the crack. It closed behind them with a soft whoosh. The charm in Elena's hand turned to dust. Everything went quiet. Then Daniel took a deep breath and stood up on shaking legs. He walked to where his mother had been. His hands moved slow and careful. "Goodbye, Mom. I love you." Hawthorne slid down the wall, crying without sound. Elena moved at Daniel's side. The boy looked up at her with eyes that, for the first time, had no fear in them. Just sadness, just love, just the normal hurt of missing someone. He signed slowly. "Will you stay?" Elena pulled him into her arms, holding him tight as he finally cried real tears. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll stay." Outside, the sun was coming up.